I'd love to have each of you comment, if you could, on what the future looks like.
You know, we started to talk about something that I introduced to the team recently, which is to essentially map the utility of every electron, or map the value of every electron that comes into a commercial or industrial facility, so that we can start to manage literally, right down to, the utility of this light, or the value of this light, and the value of a degree of air conditioning change, so that we can know across a network exactly what we can manage in an aggregated fashion. I want to know right down to the electron where that should be used, where it has its highest value right now. It has a higher value in the dairy cooler than it does in the Gatorade cooler. So I'm going to turn the Gatorade cooler off, and I'm going to keep the dairy cooler cool so I don't go out of FDA compliance. It's a very interesting software challenge. It's a very interesting systems challenge. It's the kind of challenge that I think, we're going to see amazing things from Silicon Valley, from Route 128 in Boston, where we're going to see some of the best minds building software applications that tie back into a smart grid and take it right down, right down to literally the square foot level, so that we can bring some of the most sophisticated, energy management, demand response, optimization to the use of electricity on the demand side, so that we're essentially adding a new resource to the supply side in effect.
Okay, thanks.
I think that there's too much future for all of us. We've all got our hands full, but we've got all the technology that we need to do anything that we would need to do. It is here. It is inexpensive. It works. It is scalable. So the future depends upon utilities doing the right things. I think utilities need to do the right things. They need to build open systems that allow anybody's applications to become part of their smart grid. The future is not gated by technology, and I don't think it's gated by utility desire to do the right thing, and I don't think it's gated by consumer desire to do the right thing. It is actually gated to some extent, or a great extent, by regulation. And so I think we have to be optimistic about regulation, because look what's happened in California, look what's happening all over Europe, look what's happening in Asia, look what's happening in Australia. The regulators are saying, go do the right thing, and that's wonderful. But I'd like to add one idea about regulation, which I think is maybe the killer app, and that's the idea that Jim Rogers at Duke Energy has. And what Jim says is, he wants regulation that's going to pay him not for selling energy, but for saving energy.
Beyond what we're talking about here in terms of engaging the customer, and this is very important to us, the other element that, just to touch on briefly, is the automation and bringing information technologies to the management of the circuits, the distribution circuits, the substations and the like. There has been some development over the last 20 years, but for the most part, up until the late 90s, things kind of got stalled. And as a result of the regulatory environment of the last 5 years, there's been encouragement to invest in that infrastructure. And in Southern California, Edison's case, and this is not too different than many utilities around the United States, most of our growth happened after World War II with the baby boom and the development and expansion of the population, particularly in California. And as a result, our infrastructure is something like 40 to 50 years old, which is at the end of its life cycle. Southern California Edison, like others, but in our case, we're investing up to $12 billion over the next 5 years in replacing that infrastructure. And as part of that, taking the opportunity not to replace it just with what was out there literally in terms of technology, not too different than what George Westinghouse and Tesla had put out 100 years ago, but looking to take advantage of information technologies, sensor technologies that are coming to the market that are available. As Ken says, the technology is available, it's just getting it out there. And with the right regulatory environment, which we have here in California under the leadership of Commissioner Peavy, we've been able to think a little differently about how we take advantage of this opportunity to make it more effective in terms of how we provide service to our customers, things like how we manage outages, how we effectively manage through heat storms, and the like, where grids can actually self-heal.
But what if we change the paradigm quite a bit, where, very simple example that's very practical, you and your neighbor decide between the two of you that you will never put more than a certain load on the utility. Let's say it's 10 kVA. And the two homes are smart enough to talk to each other. So now the two homes both have the same goal of keeping the house cool. And on a particular point in time, one home wants to turn on its air conditioner, and it checks to see what the other home's doing. It says, what's going on over there? Say, well, we're at 9 kVA total. If you turn on, we're going to go to 11. So the two homes chat with each other and say, what's the temperature in your house? Well, temperature in my house is 72. What's the temperature in your house? Mine's 80. You mind if you turn off your air conditioner while I turn on? These are the types of interactions when it comes to internet and interacting with e-commerce, the things that we do constantly. We have to bring the whole world of the utility into that level. When can that occur? 2 to 3 years is very, very reasonable with our technology and with the technologies we just talked about, and a little bit of help from the regulators. The regulators have to accept the fact that there's going to be more than, in the case of Southern California, Edison for residential customers, maybe half a dozen schedules, very few schedules that are out there for the rates, that it's going to have to change to thousands and thousands and thousands of schedules. And those schedules will have to be managed in a completely different way. Very similar to the way airlines manage for seat yield, manage pricing. Prices are different. They're always changing. Same types of things we have to be able to do. Now, that's a little bit farther down the road, maybe 5 to 10. But that initial part I talked about, if I've got a solar panel, you've got a solar panel, and there's a tree blocking mine, why can't I, at that point in time, why can't we share that energy?
Distance, 165 yards. Slope, 17 degrees. Wind speed, 6.5. Spin rate, 11,000. Velocity, 125. Launch angle, 43 degrees from.
Making the right decision begins with having the right information.
I forgot the Earth's rotation.
We know what it takes to be a Tiger. See findings from our research on over 500 high performers. Accenture, high performance delivered.